Um, Tom Alexandrovich, he's the head of aviation guidance department of the INCD, and he will introduce us today to the civil aviation cybersecurity threats and how we need to protect our airborne, ground interfaces, and critical infrastructure. Welcome.
So, good afternoon, everyone. My name is Tom Alexandrovich, and we are going to talk about security and vulnerabilities in next-generation air transportation systems. A little disclaimer, this presentation is for informational purpose only, so I'm taking the full responsibility whatever is applying and experimenting with presented materials. Is anyone a pilot in the audience? No? Perfect. So, bicycle and cyber. Did you know that Shimano brakes have a new feature that you can update the firmware in your bicycle? You can change the firmware, update, and change functions that it's directly compromise your brakes. If you want to break this, you need to buy this first. Hacking a bicycle is easy. We all have a bike. What about hacking a car? You can buy a car. What about breaking an airplane? You can buy an airplane. So, civil aviation cybersecurity. Today, 2% of the aircraft have an E-enabled capability. The range of potential threats on civil aviation cyberspace is wide. Damage to vital systems, aircraft flying, fuel density, etc. Closing the airport, disabling the air conditioning in the airport. Cyber events in aviation, disruption of GPS system of unmanned aircraft, penetrating into ground computing system. In 2015, hackers broke into a load company website and then compromised the system that reproduced the flight plans of the planes. As a result of the breakup, the company was shut down for several hours and 10 flights were canceled. Cyber threats to airports. Almost all modern airports have an IT systems. All airport is connected, disabling sites or changing contents, ransomware in aviation systems, disrupting the baggage system, stealing credit debit card, jamming jetways, closing ramps. Cyber threats to cockpit. Aircraft require regular updates and uploading data such as electronic flightback. Electronic flightback is the tablet that the pilot using for connecting to the cockpit. These vectors can be used to upload malicious software or critical fake data. How do you update the electronic flightback? When updating, you need to identify the aircraft and identify the update. They all use a PKI infrastructure and the CA certificate. Cyber threats to ground systems. A common attack vector is the impact of hostile code that disrupts the activity of the aircraft system or fails to transmit critical updates to the aircraft. Cyber threats to passenger cabin. In 2005, during the design of the Airbus A380, a new Airbus, the planners were able to break into the flight control system from the passenger seats. A demonstration of this capability reorganized all the network in the Airbus and separated. Supply chain. In the Boeing Dreamliner 787, more than 26 subcontractors manufacturing only the body. What does the F-35 fighter have in common with the Dreamliner? They both have only 26 subcontractors manufacturing only the avionics system. The aviation industry in the software business. Cyber threats to aircraft connectivity. Airplanes host several data communication systems, like ACARS, ADSB. The existing communication systems were designed without a cyber shell. We are going to focus about one connectivity that's called ADSB. In this image, you are watching the next generation air transportation system. Communication between aircraft and air traffic control system is strictly data-based. Navigation is entirely done using satellites rather than ground-based aids. Pilots make more informed decisions for the flight space and their safety. ADSB is the backbone of next generation. It relies on GPS satellite signals. ADSB functionality. ADSB is automatic dependent surveillance broadcast. This is the ATC of the future. It's required on most ACs in US by 2020 and required in Europe. It gives pilots their own radar picture, and this is a transport layer. It's not a physical, it's OSI level 4. ADSB using to determine aircraft position, velocity, and other parameters. ADSB is better than a radar because it reports the location of the aircraft each second and not each 12 seconds like a radar. ADSB provides two inputs, in and out. This is a data link type. The ADSB out portion is responsible for broadcasting messages from aircraft via an onboard transmitter to the ground stations. Replacing the radar and tracking aircraft worldwide, it's sharing position, altitude, velocity, etc. with the air traffic control system. So the advantage is in increasing situational awareness, coverage areas without radar, and it's less expensive than a radar. So how ADSB works? ADSB data field is 56 bytes long and contains corresponding surveillance data. ADSB signals from aircraft to ground station are transmitted at 1090 megahertz, like a GPS. They contain 112 bits of data, encoding using pulse position. And the data rate is 1 megabits. Following the IK aircraft address is a 7-byte ADSB data, which consists of flight information, such as altitude, latitude, longitude, and the 3 last bytes, it's an error checksum. ADSB input mistakes. The broadcast messages contain information such as aircraft flight, information speed, heading, and other parameters that are displayed to the air traffic and to the pilots. You can see that there is some important codes that you can inject into the ADSB, like 7500, hijacking, 777, military interceptor operation code. ADSB using for decreasing separation distance. You can see the use with ADSB coverage and without ADSB coverage. So the separation distance increasing to 5 nanometers. You can put 5 planes in the same distance. The surveillance coverage. The radar with ADSB coverage and only ADSB coverage is much more bigger. Let's talk about ADSB security. There is no security in ADSB, no encryption, and you can attack range from passive attacks, evade dropping, to active attacks, message jamming, replay attack. You can select your target. All the data is public. You can receive your data from a software-defined radio, and you can reproduce a virtual aircraft. Some of the threats of the ADSB, spoofing and flooding. You can fly ARTS radar with ghost airplane. You can inject actually an airplane. I will demonstrate it later. So ADSB attack is a truth or fiction. You can reproduce false alarms, aircraft targets, ghost injection, inject phantom aircrafts, ground station, multiple ghost injection. You can replace the original parameters of ADSB signal and insert malicious strings designed to attack a ground station. This is an overview of ADSB most vulnerable areas. It's divided to transmitter aircraft, a receiver aircraft, and a ground station. We can divide severity of the impact of the attacks on ADSB to 5 grade class. The effect on operation, effect on occupants, effect on air crew, effect on air traffic service, etc. What about public access? This is the print screen of the FAA website, the Federal Aviation Administration of the United States. So you can download all aircraft database directly from the website. Let's reproduce together a replay attack on ADSB. We are taking our target, it's a ground segment and air ground segment. And the attack technique is a message injection and interception of ADSB out. The technical difficulty is medium, and the impact is classified 4. So we want to inject our message. We need, first of all, to capture the traffic. While capturing the traffic, we need to write the software to capture ADSB out messages, and we need to do some recon on the aircraft. Of course, placing a transmitter to the correct position on ground station. And setting up the equipment. Setting up the required hardware, setting up the required software, adjust the bandwidth, the 1090 megahertz, and write the software to inject the ghost aircraft. So we're capturing, first of all, we're capturing ADSB data. We're using a simple Python code for this. Using some range of the game, rate, and of course the 190 megahertz. So we capture the data and replaying the data with our transmitter. Exploitation of ADSB vulnerabilities. So interception, a message injection, the techniques take advantage of the ease of the exploit of lack authentication of the system. The attacker must implement a proper transmitter, and he can inject. Jamming. The execution of jamming disables one of various nodes of the wireless network from sending and receiving messages, and you need enough power to disrupt the 1090 megahertz frequency. Of course, message deletion. The attack is executed mainly by means of interference, the delete message from the wireless network. The level of difficulty in this attack is very high. Message modification. The integrity of the message is affected with the modification of the information containing in the message. You can modify the message. What about you? You need to decode the message first of all, without errors. And you must locate yourself in correct position and angle to the aircraft. You need to be very precise. You need to calculate the speed and the altitude of the aircraft, and then to transmit it with a high gain transmitter. And of course, precise timing. What about using a COTS ADSB receivers? You can buy a simple receiver, a DVB antenna with a Raspberry Pi. And you can build a virtual lab to do this. So this is the ADSB injection from flight gear into a real-world ADSB receiver. You can see your mom airplane, okay? And we are actually flying with your mom and crashing it directly to the airport. So this is our airplane. He's doing a U-turn, and he's landing. He's crashing on the airport. What about using a HackRF gear? Anybody familiar with HackRF? Perfect. Do not try it at home. You're taking the HackRF gear. This is our transmitter, and on the other side you have the receiver. You're taking the dump. A very famous dump of ATSB is a 1090 dump. It's called 1090 dump. You're taking a target, some island, and you're reproducing the attack. You're sending, injecting through the HackRF. This is our plane. On the left side, the whole plane flies like this. What can happen with the ATSB sabotage in the real world? I will show you the terrifying video captured for a moment of German drone that missed with 2 meters from an Afghan plane carrying hundreds of passengers. You can see the drone. This is the wings of the drone, and you can see the aircraft almost hitting the drone. How does ATSB looks like in community view? Anybody familiar with flight radar? Yes. Perfect. This is Israel. Welcome. This is our planes. So each plane that you click on, all the information that you see here, the destination, the source. If you buy the full license of flight gear, you can see the registration number. You can see more information, the calibrate altitude, more and more information. All this information is from ATSB. So in the summary, encourage aviation to work together on the discovery, research, and mitigation of cyber threats. ATSB has emerged as a promising technology for optimizing the use of airspace while lowering the cost and increasing the security of air traffic communication operations. Many security vulnerabilities in the protocol have been discovered, generating a pressing need for a holistic, system-oriented approach to properly address the problem. I'm not saying that the flights are not safe, but there is a lot of vulnerabilities on all the communication protocols and, of course, in the avionics system and the airplanes. Thank you all. If you have questions, feel free. Thank you.